I always think you can learn an awful lot from looking at how other people go about things, and that's the same when it comes to mushroom growing. And this video shows you 5 amazing case studies of people from within our growing community who have achieved a lot in a very short amount of time. And this video is meant to inspire you to take the next step. These people have achieved a lot in a short amount of time, but they all started out as complete beginners. 2 of these growers that will feature are also our community managers from within our online course community. That's the first and the last one, and with that said, let's get stuck in.
First up then, let's meet Robert Nolan, founder of Boxed In Mushroom Company based in Texas, USA. He specializes in growing top quality fresh gourmet mushrooms and medicinal mushroom tinctures, producing a wide range of varieties including oysters, pioppino, shiitake, turkey tail, lion's mane, chestnut and king oyster mushrooms as well. Right now he produces between 48 and 60 8-pound bags of substrate every single week, and that yields him between 100 and 120 pounds of fresh mushrooms, which he sells mostly at a really popular farmers market near to where he's based, where he's built up a pretty loyal following of regular customers who come for his super fresh mushrooms, his recipe ideas and his range of medicinal tinctures. Now, one of the things I really love about Robert is his dedication to producing the very freshest mushrooms possible. He gets up at 3 a.m. on market day to make sure that the mushrooms he takes to market are the absolute freshest that he can get, and it's really paid off for him because it's really set the standard really high. He's ended up with a lot of customers who love that peak freshness, and this is a theme we're going to come back to with a few of the people here in this video. Before diving into the world of mushrooms, Robert was actually growing leafy greens hydroponically on a commercial scale, but he fancied a change and decided to get into mushrooms. He had some good early success and built his first setup in a shipping container before building a second version of it that was with cold store panels. He built a lab and began to get into doing his own spawn production as well. Early on, contamination was Robert's biggest challenge, but he persevered through that, built himself a lab, steam sterilizer barrel, and just got to work learning sterile technique and start to see some great progress. Fast forward 4 years and Robert's just in the middle of a massive move, moving his whole farm from a 950 square foot facility to a 3,200 square foot facility where he's going to have a lot more room. And his aim really is just to maintain this consistently high quality of mushrooms for local sale, but also to expand and grow his product range as well as keep up sales of his tinctures. He found our course and community really useful for helping him find his direction and also for realizing that there's always a workaround to whatever problem that you might be facing. His top tip for new growers is to start where you are, use what you've got, and do what you can, which I think is fantastic advice. He strongly believes that failures are often the best teachers, and you'll often see him in his role as a community manager in our group here, just helping people to understand what went wrong and how they can learn from it in order to make good success in the future.
Meet Faye and Jay, the couple who run A Taste of the Good Life in Cornwall. This farm operates fully off-grid. It's the only one we know in the UK actually that does so. It's got solar panel, composting toilets and a soak-away. They've transformed a rugged 3.5 acre plot into a thriving small holding in just 5 years. And besides mushrooms, they also grow microgreens, fruit and vegetables, and they keep chickens and goats as well. All the while, Jay works a separate full-time job and Faye runs the day-to-day farm operations. Their main business is selling wholesale, but they also supply to restaurants and local hotels, and they also supply local box schemes. Each week, Faye produces about 40 to 50 kilograms of mushrooms. That's about 100 to 110 pounds of mushrooms. They're primarily grey oyster, lion's mane and shiitake, and they do this in a repurposed fridge lorry body that they turned into a fruiting room. You can see that on your screen here. Faye picks and delivers orders the same day, ensuring peak freshness and a strong selling point for top chefs who value sustainability and the couple's off-grid practices. And Faye said to me that this peak freshness, this picking and then delivering really quickly, is a real good selling point, and I want you to take that away because the chefs start talking to each other and it creates a real buzz around the mushrooms, of course. Faye said people are genuinely excited about mushrooms, making this an incredible market to be a part of. Now, getting to this point wasn't easy, of course. Faye had to put in a lot of work clearing thistles, removing rocks, and build infrastructure, of course. Roads using donated materials, as well as installing a solar-powered system to fire up the farm. The solar system was required because it was proving too expensive to hook up to mains electricity. And when COVID hit, she pivoted to retail deliveries and then quickly picked up wholesale clients as lockdowns eased. And over time, she also learned to manage contamination and experiment with different varieties, though maitake still remains a challenge for her. And Faye said to me, so what started off as a dream has just developed into this really lovely, thriving agricultural company. And that's just super cool to hear, right? So looking ahead, Faye plans to install a second fruiting room, possibly cracking the secret to maitake cultivation, and also install a compost heated air system to keep temperatures optimal in the winter. And she credits the Grow Cycle course and community with being invaluable in getting her from that point of being a complete beginner to having this thriving agricultural enterprise. And then she added as well that it's not just about that sort of technical knowledge, it's also the encouragement and having friendships and helping each other in the community out with, for instance, shared deliveries and just a bit of encouragement when things are going a bit tough. And her advice to you, don't lose the sense of wonder. Your passion will shine through and that will make the mushrooms practically sell themselves.
Next up then, let's meet Mick Eaton. Now Mick's actually based just a couple miles down the road from where we are here in Devon, and when he first started out he actually dropped us an email and just checked that we were happy for him to start up so close by to us, and yeah, that wasn't a problem for us. We encouraged him to do so, and at that point he joined our course and community. And Mick had actually run a couple of businesses prior to that in Australia where he's from. He also spent some time in China studying martial arts and developed an interest in medicinal mushrooms. When he got started, he really just began on a pretty basic low-tech methodology that we often teach for most beginners in our course. He was growing on straw, growing a bunch of oyster mushrooms in a low-tech way in a shipping container. And within a year or two, he progressed into a bigger unit. He moved into a barn on a farm and began to develop and upgrade his setup, including a lab, a steam sterilizer that he made from a converted cattle trough, and built some larger grow rooms from cold store panels. And he began sterile cultivation, and before long was selling over 100 kilograms, that's about 220 pounds of mushrooms every week. Organic gourmet mushrooms, including shiitake, king oyster, lion's mane, and maitake. And one of the things that Mick is particularly good at is networking with customers, and he did a great job, I think, of just reaching out to some of the bigger wholesalers in the UK and began to supply his mushrooms to them and build up a great customer base. In the last couple of years, he's invested heavily in equipment and he's expanded his farm considerably. He's designed and made a whole bunch of custom units to help him out in producing sterile substrate. He's built a larger lab with HEPA filtered air supply, created custom environmental controls to get the right conditions in each stage of the process, and he's really gone for it in terms of producing ready to fruit substrate blocks, which has become a big part of his business now as well. His operation now produces hundreds of kilos of substrate each batch that he runs, and he does that multiple times a week, fueling both his own farm and other up-and-coming mushroom businesses across the UK that are taking his substrate and then simply doing the final stage of the fruiting process, which is something we often recommend for new growers to get started. Mick has continued to network and to learn and improve his own skills and knowledge. He's attended courses all over Europe with some of the most long-running mushroom companies and experts in the field of substrate production, and learned a lot from them, which he's then brought back to his business here in the UK. With a growing team of staff to help him, his aim is now to expand his fresh mushroom sales further and also to become one of the major substrate producers here in the UK. So I asked Mick what his tip would be for any new and aspiring mushroom growers, and he said a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. Firstly was to really specialise, to sort of pick an area of the mushroom industry that interests you and to really specialise in that, not try to do everything all at once. And secondly, and most importantly I think, it was to collaborate with others that already know more than you in order to sort of speed up the learning process, but also to pick up those little nuggets and gems of info that are only learned through experience, basically. So combining those two things together can really help grow your business and make it work.
Meet Jody and Lorraine. They're the co-founders of Caley Brothers Mushrooms, and this company focuses on three main areas: fresh gourmet mushrooms, ready to fruit grow kits, and then also they showcase their mushrooms at events across the UK. Currently they produce around 10 kilograms of mixed mushrooms weekly. These are pink, yellow, grey, king oyster, shiitake and lion's mane mushrooms, and they aim to scale up to 40 kilograms a week. Now, before mushroom farming, Jody worked in hospitality and Lorraine worked in design, and they got really into mushrooms just to change their diet to improve the health of not just their dad, but also of their own families. They had young families and they were looking for a bit of a career break. And because of this, they discovered gourmet mushrooms. They then went on to discover the Grow Cycle course in the community, and they were just hooked. They immediately got stuck in and experimented with how to go about growing mushrooms this way. Starting small, learning from both successes like robust grey oyster crops and setbacks with tricky king oysters. And their first year was intense, investing in equipment, juggling time between cleaning, harvesting and record keeping, but the magic of growing mushrooms kept them inspired, and here you can see them with their very first ever production batch, mixing it up in 2019. And for them, a really big breakthrough came when they were approached by a designer called Arit Anderson to join the Chelsea Flower Show. And the Chelsea Flower Show is a big deal here in the UK, and it eventually led to them winning a gold medal for their own exhibit in 2023, which is an amazing result. And this bit of great publicity led to more collaborations with great names like Fortnum & Mason's, the Tate Gallery, and they were also approached by London's Kew Gardens for publishing a book called Project Mushroom. Now, these two sisters also run and host a variety of hands-on workshops to help others with an interest in growing mushrooms. Some of the images on your screen reminded me of running those workshops ourselves, and they're a great way to teach and inspire, but also to meet other people for a fun day of learning about all things mushrooms. Right, so looking ahead then, Jody and Lorraine will be looking at hiring staff so they can increase the output of fresh mushrooms at their farm, as well as sell more mushroom grow kits. They've got plenty on, and between them they often joke that they left their 9-to-5 job just to be involved in the 24/7 one, which I think is something to bear in mind when you take on a project like this, of course. But they also feel privileged to have found the passion later in life and are proud to be part of a mushroom growing community. And their tip for you is to grow slowly, learn along the way, and keep reinvesting into the next step. It's worked for them, and they're living proof of what passion and possibilities in mushroom growing can lead to.
Meet Zach, owner of Slowly Mushroom Company based in Wales here in the UK. After working all over the world in learning and development, he was teaching conflict resolution to teams. He developed an interest in mushrooms through a passion for permaculture originally. He grows a range of fresh gourmet varieties like blue oyster, king oyster, lion's mane, reishi and turkey tail, with a particular interest in low-tech growing techniques and finding ways to reduce the ecological footprint of mushroom production, something that we care an awful lot about as well. He sells his produce mostly at farmers markets and retail outlets in the area around southwest Wales where he's based. But fresh produce isn't the only focus for Zach. He also recently launched a lion's mane hot chocolate and plans to expand into a wider range of medicinal mushroom products in the year ahead. Now, what really makes Slowly stand out is Zach's interest in low-tech, bucket-based production. He uses straw pellets and alfalfa. He hydrates the substrate, usually with cold water, sometimes adding a bit of lime to that as well to reduce contamination. And then mainly he's packing it into buckets. And he does this to reduce the use of single-use plastic and to make his whole production more sustainable. The simplicity of this method works really well for oyster mushrooms, and for more delicate and medicinal varieties, he moves to a slightly more sterile process with hardwood pellets and minimal supplementation using an atmospheric steam sterilizer. Now, like all mushroom growers, scaling up doesn't come without its challenges, and of course he's faced plenty of those, whether it's contamination or hauling around lots of buckets, doing a lot of additional cleaning, or finding markets for your produce. Zach has faced all of the typical challenges that any mushroom grower does, but he has persevered through it, and that's often mainly what it takes. He's got out there, he's gone to markets, he's met his customers face to face and built up a loyal following around where he's based. Zach credits the Grow Cycle course and community with providing him with priceless advice, helping him troubleshoot issues that have occurred along the way, and helping him to avoid costly mistakes early on. The way he said it to me was that you're not failing, you're just finding out what works. It's a pretty similar philosophy to Robert, I think. And like Robert, you'll see him there in the community all throughout the week, helping to answer people's questions, giving advice based on his own experience and helping new growers along the way. So there you have it. We've met 5 different mushroom farmers here, heard a lot about their stories, their journeys. You've heard their tips as well. And I hope you found this inspiring. That's the aim of this video, is basically to give you some inspiration, to help you see what's possible. Do bear in mind, of course, this is after 4 or 5 years of work in many of these cases. All these people started off basically not really knowing anything. And that's an important thing to bear in mind when you're looking at this and thinking what's achievable for you. Everyone starts off at the beginning, and it takes a lot of hard work and continual learning to get to where they are today. So I hope this has been inspiring and useful for you. And if you're keen on getting started, my best advice really would be just to give it a go. That is where it all begins. Thanks a lot for joining us in this video, and we'll see you again soon.